Now we're getting into some more interesting and cool stuff such as AWS Elastic Beanstalk. So it's all about how do you deploy applications safely and predictably. So far, we've seen that we have a web app with 3-tier architecture, and there were a lot of components in there. There was elastic load balancing, there was auto-scaling, multi-AZ, there was a database RDS, there was a cache with elastic cache, and all these things we had to create manually. Imagine if we had to deploy so many apps, Java, Go, Python, whatever language you're using, even Docker, and we had every time to create that load balancer, to configure that auto-scaling and that RDS database. And on top of this, well, we need to deploy into several environments such as dev, test, and prod, and maybe want to have different versions at the same time. I mean, it's a complete nightmare, right? So as a developer, you don't want to manage infrastructure. You just want to deploy code. You want to configure the databases, load balancers once, and just be done with it. You want it to scale, okay? You want your deployment to be valid for one instance, but also to be valid for 100 instances. And as you can see, well, the architecture right here is pretty traditional. Most web apps will have a load balancer and an auto-scaling group. So as a developer, personal wish, I want my code to run. I really don't care about the architecture. And I possibly want consistency across all my applications environment. I want a one-stop shop to manage my stuff, okay? So this is where Elastic Beanstalk comes in. Elastic Beanstalk is like a developer-centric view, so you can deploy applications on AWS. It will leverage all the components we've seen before, and that's why we've been to the fundamentals first. So all the EC2, ASG, ELB, RDS, etc., all these things we've seen before, we're going to reuse them right now. And this is why it comes in super handy. It's one view that's super easy to make sense of. So we'll see all the configuration and development, but we still have full control over how all these components get configured, which is really nice. Elastic Beanstalk on top of this is free, and you are going to pay only for the underlying instances. So Beanstalk is a managed service. That means that the instance configuration or the operating system will be handled by Beanstalk. The deployment strategy, you can configure it, but again, it will be performed by Beanstalk, and just the application code is your responsibility. That's kind of an oversimplification. You can always customize stuff, but I wanted to give you a straight, easy to understand picture. There's 3 architectures model for Beanstalk. You have a single instance deployment, which is good for dev. So you have a whole environment that's going to be one instance. Then you have a load balancer and an auto-scaling group. That's great when you do production or pre-production for your web applications and you want to see how they react at scale. And then if you just want to have an ASG, so no load balancers, it is great when you do non-web apps in production, such as you have workers or other kind of models that don't need a load balancer or don't need to be accessible. So Beanstalk, when we look at it, and we'll see this in the hands-on, it has 3 components. It has an application version. So every time you upload new code, basically every time you upload new code, you'll get an application version, and environment names. So you're going to deploy your code to dev, test, and prod. And you're free to name your environments just the way you want and have as many environments as you wish. You're going to deploy applications to environments, and basically we'll be able to promote these application versions to the next environment. So it's the whole idea. We're going to create an application version, get it from dev to test to prod, etc., etc. There's a rollback feature as well, so you can roll back to your previous application version, which is quite handy. And we get full control over the lifecycle of environments. So the idea is that you create an application and you create an environment or multiple environments, and then you're going to upload a version and you're going to give it an alias, so just a name that you want. And then this alias, you will release it to environments. Fairly easy, right? So what can we deploy on Beanstalk? Well, it has support for a tons of platforms. And if your platform is not there, there's something weird. But Go, Java, Java Tomcat, .NET, Node, PHP, Python, Ruby, Packer, single container Docker, multi-container Docker, pre-configured Docker. And if your platform is not supported, you can write your own custom platform, although that is fairly advanced and not something that's expected of you as an associate developer. But that's the idea. With Beanstalk, we can do a lot of things. And so what we're going to do is deploy an app on Beanstalk. So we'll see you in the next lecture.